Well, thanks for taking a minute to give you a quick update of what God is doing in a number of the larger and faster growing Assembly of God churches around the country. A series of breakthroughs in both our partnerships as well as what God is doing in those churches. I'm going to do my best to cover what is 10 different churches and some of the new developments, both in terms of what we're doing with them and what's happening in and through the senior pastor's life, work, and ministry. My two sisters came to Christ under the ministry of Jack Hayford, and Calvary Chapel, and they had an influence on them when I was kind of lost as a goose, not interested in spiritual things. They kept nudging on me, and when I was in my early college years, I made a decision to trust Christ with my life. My sisters now are actually involved up in NorCal with Bill and those guys up at Bill Johnson, those guys up at Bethel. They've been involved in Spirit-filled ministry forever, and my sister pastors with her husband an AG church under the ministry up in Northern California. I have had such a privileged opportunity to serve on the staff at Willow Creek and then Saddleback, working with now 7 of the top 10 churches in America, 50 of the largest churches in the country, and what is now over 500 megachurches. For whatever reason, God has, after working at those places, opened up a tremendous harvest of partnerships with a number of the AG churches around the country. Certainly, our partnership with Dr. Wood and what we did with at General Council, producing what was over 700 different pastors from district roles, regional roles, the executive team, both in the women's and in youth and in Spanish, where we developed dozens of curriculum with and for them. It's been a long process, but that has been one of our flagship things that we have done. But years ago, working with Dan Betzer and the guys out in Orlando, and working with Wayne Blackburn out at Victory, also in Florida. Florida's been kind of a hotbed for us. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk right through each one of these, give you samples of both the video, the previews, the promos that were played on the weekend to help launch this as a church-wide campaign and initiative to help connect the entire congregation, raise up what is 10% of the adults to lead, start groups, and then help sustain those groups, and then ultimately help them develop a strategy to reach their community through community. So this isn't just about connecting a congregation, closing the back door. This is really for a larger church trying to figure out how do they go ahead and reach their community. So let me go ahead and walk through the first one. The first one's one of my favorites. It's a gentleman named Dale Oquist, senior pastor at People's Church. Just was with him a couple of weeks ago, and he's out at a Vanguard board meeting. He's one of the larger AG churches in the California. But I've just grown to love Dale, and we did a series called 30 Days to Easter. It was a Lenten series, but Lent is actually a great time to connect a very large percentage of your congregation that's unconnected. And the series that we did on this one had, in the print, it had these beautiful, what we call Jesus photos that were kind of like, more like the life of Christ, or something that you saw with something that, Mark Barnett did with the movies. It wasn't quite the Passion like Mel Gibson, but it was more like what those guys did with the Bible and some of the other things with that you saw. So you see this kind of imagery that was just beautiful. This series, we connected north of 4,000 people in groups when he was going into it with maybe about 500. So it was a really great run. Then, and this is a great strategy pre-Easter for a lot of churches. We're doing this as a very common strategy because it's a good spiritually responsive time, those 30 days before Easter. Next, we took them to what was a series called Crazy Generosity. It was a stewardship series based off time, talent, treasure, and trust in God. This series was so much fun because we got them in connected, and then afterwards we helped mobilize them for ministry. We helped try to give them a vision to be able to recognize it's not just their time or their talents, but it's also their treasure. So it had kind of a stewardship value. We did that afterwards, after we got them all connected, before we launched into the summer. And this series was so much fun because this one is actually endorsed by Rich Wilkerson, who's a family member, as I said, with Dale Joni, his wife. But you keep flipping through this, but you could see in this we do what we call congregational curriculum, congregational photos. We have hundreds of photos with multiple people in them, so that you have thousands of faces on a curriculum that gets this magazine-like effect, as well as a yearbook effect like in high school. So this series was one of my favorites, done with a guy that I just love. I've crossed the line with Dale, and now he's just a friend, a sacred buddy, and I just see such incredible things for him in what is the tribe that he's in. I just brought him to the Ark gathering and introduced him to a whole bunch of guys that he knew, a whole bunch of those guys because of the crossovers in there. But now the next one we did was called Elephant Issues. And Elephant Issues was a gutsy series that he did. It was Elephant Issues too big to, to ignore. And this one we turned his worship center stage into a studio and did kind of an I Am Second kind of like interview with about 30 different people in his congregation. And then him and Joni, his wife, went and kind of helped to teach a little bit. He did most of the teaching. And with this particular series, though, it was aligned with the weekend sermon series, like most of the things that we do, in order to get that synergy of getting people in groups and recruiting people to be able to say, yes, I loved this project. It was so much fun. The passion of what were the 6 key topics that were challenging topics about, about issues of the day. But this was a fun one. Okay. The next one I'm going to tell you about is Dr. Wood has set up a kind of a task force with what is Greg Surratt doing some really cool things. And Greg Surratt is the lead guy that started under Billy Hornsby's ministry, what is known as ARC, Association of Related Churches. And there's a lot of Spirit-filled churches in that tribe, from Chris Hodges and all these guys. So it was really a fun project. Well, we've done 4 projects working over the course of the year. You'll see a trailer or a little video down below that gives you an example of the partnership that we've had with them. But these samples, by the way, all of them are down below in the email. But we did a series called I See a Church. It's a vision, mission, and value series. We always do these for churches in the new year or in the fall to kind of get everybody on the right page. And so it was their core values and their mission statement. And we did this in the Citadel in North Carolina. That was this beautiful chapel with lots of stained glass and the glory of it. And him and his son and a bunch of the other people taught them. Then we did daily video devotions that were 90 seconds that went out Monday through Friday. The weekly Bible study was all video driven. It was aligned with a major church-wide campaign. This one was a fun one. We've done several others with them. One was called a series on the book of James on joy. That was a fun one that we coached them to do. We actually didn't do full service production. We do a lot of different ways we work with a church, typically kind of a train the trainer kind of a thing. But the other one that we did was Make Room for God. And the Make Room for God series, oh, by the way, before I go, this particular series was 8.5 by 11. It was a thick, beautiful, full color, kind of a magazine style. And you drop that thing on a table, it has a big thud effect. People love this, and they kept it. It was timeless. It was an important piece, but it had both individual, lots of color photographs from the life, work, and ministry of the church, but also questions and things like that where people kind of responded, or they could go deeper, or individually they had a devotional kind of experience daily, not just what is the weekly. So this was a fun one. So Greg, the next one I want to tell you about is a guy named Dean Curry up in the Pacific Northwest in Tacoma at Christian Life Center, and I really have come to respect Dean because Dale and Dean are kind of, because Dean came down to Southern California and we shot our first series that we called Jesus Basics. He just wanted it to be, what is the pure in essence message of the life of Christ? We want our people to kind of get the basics of that. So we brought him down to kind of pristine Southern California, and we shot this on the beach in Laguna, kind of a footprints kind of a thing that was just pure-hearted. He went right to camera, and then he had his team come down and do daily video devotions, got all of his campus pastors on the same page, had them participate, some host it, some do stories, testimonies, but it was a really fun series. Then just a couple of months ago, that he's actually in the middle of right now, we went back up and we did a brand new format that we kind of call the town hall, where it's a senior pastor sitting center stage with a bunch of people in a home, or sometimes we'll do this on a worship center stage for a church, and or we'll go on location like we did with Christine Kane and others that are in these cool venues like a barn or an art studio or someplace that we can kind of have a cool backdrop. But what we did on this one is we integrated not just his teaching and talking, that was really a totally different kind of curriculum. It gets engagement in a way that we've really never seen possible, more of a dialogue, not just a one-way monologue or a talking head. But we integrated a little bit of worship. So he opened it, it flowed to a couple of worship songs, then it flowed to what is his teaching, it closed with a worship song, and functionally it's kind of like a service, which is a long story short, we were actually doing some crazy things about launching what you're calling microsite services that are not quite a multi-site, a little bit more than a small group, but this is a really exciting new future for us, helping large churches launch microsite services, or campuses, mind you, 30 minutes, 30 miles, 3 states, 3 continents away. So this was one of them. Okay, the next one I want to cover, great friend Choko DeJesus, who was on Time Magazine as kind of the Hispanic movement leader out of Chicago. And so we went downtown Chicago, and over a 2-day period, we went to 9 locations, and we shot Choko doing both an English edition of one series and Spanish. So he did English, then he backed up and he did Spanish. A lot of the churches in the AG communities have a thriving Spanish community that they want to develop. Many times it's certainly not matching the English one, but it's certainly emerging. So we're doing a lot of Spanish editions with these churches. But we took him down in the barrio where he, in an area that was a rough part of town, another area where he kind of grew up down a bit in the hood, as he'd say. And then we interviewed a bunch of the people on his staff that have really dramatic stories. We interviewed probably about 30 people, and we took short vignettes and put it in front of each of the teaching sessions that Choko did. It was a beautiful, spectacular series. We took him up on the top of the Chicago skyline at 6 a.m. in the morning, where he could breathe and the smoke came out kind of like it was the mist in the morning, and he prayed over the city. It was just special doing this with him. We did one called In the Gap, which is based off a book that he did with the AG publisher, and he also did another one. He did another one that was kind of more famous for him, kind of his key one that he's kind of done, and we did with that as well. So I was just having so much fun with Choko doing this one. So this is another one. The next one that we did was with Luke Barnett, and Tommy Barnett played kind of a cameo in this thing, but Luke and his wife Angel, we had them do this town hall thing up at that one location that they had in the mountain with that $10 million beautiful prayer chapel. We shot it in there with about 50 people around them in a very interactive format. Again, we helped write scripts and coach with him what went up on the teleprompter, etc., and how he taught what he taught before he did the weekend sermon series. So we kind of get into that zone and help craft these with him. And he and Angel went back and forth, and then Tommy came in and kind of participated in as well. We did a little leader training stuff, but we also brought in his worship team just like this, and he had his worship team sit in the round and kind of do a jam session like worship set that we've learned how to shoot with a bunch of people wrapped around them that actually engages a living room setting. So you got a big heart for worship. This is a great way to decentralize a second worship experience. When you're adding media like this and video for both worship and teaching, this is really emerging to be the next midweek service. So we're really excited about where this is going. I'll tell you more about who and how people are getting excited about this. But I just was with Luke here recently, talking to him. He actually just exchanged yesterday on the phone. He's in the middle of kind of receiving his miracle offering they do once a year. He's already got almost $2 million, and he hasn't even hit the weekend, and that was their goal. He said, maybe I didn't have enough faith, but I said, God's got more in store. But he's become a great friend. But we're now about ready to engage with him to do the next gen in our partnership, which is not just doing curriculum that is launching small groups. It's really setting up to launch what is microsites. So we're going to produce a service called a conversation service that is taught in the round and then has worship integrated, either pre-recorded and dropped in post-production or shot live like we did with Dean Curry. And the cool thing about this with Luke is that in his particular case, the thing that has come in is the ability to not just launch multi-site, which he's done too this last year, but to launch them in smaller venues. Homes are more likely the place where it's between 10 and 100 people. It's a video-driven, volunteer-led experience that we capture. But we also are shooting a brand new kind of service with Luke is where we're going and doing with a lot of the churches around the country. And this new service is the third generation of services. So a lot of churches have a traditional service with Sunday school and all that, or they have contemporary service, still maybe have Sunday school, but a lot of them have kind of moved in where they have off-campus stuff as well with small groups. But the next one is called a conversation service, a service that is more interactive, and it could have 25, could have 250 or 2,500 people. It's shot in a way and produced so you could take the footage and do post-production and make it available for people outside, because if you're watching on a screen individually, it's way more engaging to watch this than others. And this curriculum was basically based off his life message. It's the Dream-Centered Life was the name of this one because his dad launched in with Matthew the Dream Center Vision. This one is fun because it was kind of the consumer edition, kind of like the Purpose-Driven Life edition of this series. And he's now got a partnership with a publisher to get it published. He's very excited. We're doing our best to come alongside and help out. But we many times work with a church who wants to write a book, and that was in this case. We'll do the curriculum first that'll lead to a book project, or the other way around. The pastor's got a book and they want a curriculum. So if you've written some self-published, we're pretty good at helping you do that, to add the package so that other churches in your tribe could do this. A, or B, we could help ghost write a book for churches these days. So this was a fun one. The next one that I want to cover is Rob Ketterlane, and Rob and his wife Becca have become great friends. I was just with them a couple days ago at the ARC conference, and we're talking about being able to help them do a variety of series that could be a marriage and parenting series that they would be crazy dynamic with. But he's thought to be kind of like the young gun in the Assemblies of God denomination that is really kind of an emerging voice. He's got a church in Minnesota, and it's just at River Valley. It's just like things are just going for him. It's really exciting for me to know him and have a partnership with him. But we produced, him and Becca, multiple projects over the years. One with the ARC, or several with ARC, and then we did one just kind of on our own. And then we did, this one was actually at the General Council at the 100-year anniversary, where we set up one of the 9 studios we set up was a main studio with a big jib and drama of it, and we interviewed them on a variety of topics. So, but they're really fun. They've been leading the gatherings for the emerging or the young, Assembly of God pastors, and along with Herbert Cooper, who we also have developed a series with him based off a book that he did. So we've had so much fun with a lot of these AG churches. So Rob is one. I just talked to him. We may be going back out there to do what we call an assessment, to sit down with him, hear a little bit more what God's doing in his church, see if we might be able to help him, not just with curriculum, but with small group stuff here in the days ahead. The next one has become kind of a fun new friend here. It's only been a year since I met him, and about the last 30 days since we signed a partnership to help them for a year, where we're going to help them with not just a one and done or a single campaign or curriculum, but we're going to help them for a year develop 4, and what we call a shadow program that will develop one that starts a bunch of groups and is their initial one aligned with the weekend, and then the second one is a sustainer series. So a lot of churches have done these campaigns like 40 days, this, that, and the other, like I did with Rick. I did the Purpose-Driven Life curriculum, the 40-day curriculum with him. But now to get a sustainer series, so you sustain that, so you start, and then the next one is a strengthening series, kind of takes them deeper, and then the next one is kind of a seeker series, takes them up and out. So it kind of goes like this, and either a shadow program where we do full service production for a year, or a train the trainer, or we just coach their church with their team. A lot of these churches have crazy, beautiful production capabilities and capacities. We just kind of coach their team on how to know what to do with what we know how to do. So anything's easy once you know how to do it. But this particular one with Greg, we're very excited about. We're kicking off a series that's going to be, his first series is going to be Lent, which is a really good time to try to connect a whole large group of people if you don't have them connected. We're going to do a series after Lent. We're going to do another one in the fall and then in the new year, but I'm very excited. But he was the executive pastor for years with John Lindell at James River. Great guy, and was with John and all those, just in the heyday of things. And he's gone to Arizona to plant a church with his wife, or take over a church, actually. It's an AG church in Arizona. So I love, this is going to be an exciting one. The other one that we're actually kind of coming back into working with is Todd Mullins at Christ Fellowship. And Christ Fellowship is one of the top 10 churches in America. They had like over 50,000 people at Easter. They're running on the weekends a good 25,000. They've got 6 or 7 multi-sites and on their main campus. Things are just going so great, but what they want to figure out how to do is to connect a larger number of people into groups. So I'm working with them for 18 months, helping them kind of take the next gen of their small group ministry. Most of the churches we work with, they always want that. Some want production. Typically, production is a great way to produce curriculum that aligns with the weekend to get you there further, faster. But I'm real excited. But I worked with him years ago and produced the first series with Tom Mullins, his dad. That series we really had a fun run. But you need to always keep working on your small group ministry over the years. I'm now back at Willow Creek helping them again, and I'm back out at Saddleback just going in there in 2 weeks with their whole team, sharing with them what we're doing with all these churches and churches like them around the country. But I'm real excited about working with Todd. The next one is with Christine Kane. And Christine Kane, we met her through Stovall and Carrie Weems, also a Spirit-Filled Church, and they worked with us on a series we did in her house that was called Rhythms of Grace, based off a book she did, and we shot it in her home with her friends, etc. That she introduced me to Christine, and so Christine I produced on a couple of other projects in kind of a cameo, but we have now partnered with her in her Propel ministry. So all the Propel curriculum we have been producing for them, which again is all shot in kind of a town hall setting where she is center stage with actually a couple of her girlfriends. So a lot of times we'll have a couple other kind of co-teachers. Sometimes the senior and their spouse is a real popular one, like we just did with Jerry Durham. He's a Foursquare pastor that's actually on television that is playing this format instead of the walking across the stage kind of a format you typically see for television. He's now running this actually on the weekend. On the television, which is just going crazy. He's on the Hillsong channel. But with Christine, and she just called, they're going to do the same thing on the Hillsong channel. Just roll this, because it's about 20 minutes or so in its content. But you could have a teaching team of other pastors on your team, not just the senior, but many times it's the senior, and then a room of 50 people. And this is a women's leadership curriculum that is super dynamic. So we're getting the best of things from a Oprah format to a T.D. Jakes to others that we've kind of ripped off these ideas that are working far better to engage a living room for a secondary experience. And you can see if you add a little worship to this, you got functionally a service that is crazy on steroids, a different kind of format completely, and that's where we're going. I just talked with Christine's team yesterday. They just called us and want us to do 2 more series. We've already done 5. It's just a great partnership, but you can see the quality of this is a bit over the top. We also put together a number of projects for other Foursquare pastors, like Wayne Cadero for a book that he did, The 7 Rules of Success, that launched a whole bunch of people in groups, but as a curriculum for that. And then recently talking to Tim Clark and the guys at Church on the Way, where Jack Hayford used to be. So a lot of folks in that tribe we're now partnering with. But a couple other ones, Dennis and Colleen at Victory Church in Atlanta, a church of about 15,000, about ready to go out and do what we call an assessment with them and their team. Very exciting church. And yesterday as well, just talked to Rich Wilkerson's team and their crew, Holly, who was out at Southwest teaching on the at the seminary and stuff. And so gal's just a mover and shaker. And so this church is so much fun for obvious reasons. He's more of an evangelist, but being able to do curriculum wrapped around his heart and his vision, this is kind of where we're going. Well, there's kind of a microwave. Sorry, that went a little longer than I thought, but wanted to give you a little taste of what it looks like and who we've been working with and some of the churches that are really seeing possibility to take breakthroughs and as a result of the larger, faster, some of the thought-leading churches around the country. I think as you hear this, we are now in a mode where we're kind of turning the new year and thinking of who we might be working with. It'd be fun to be able to connect with you and your team and see if we might be able to, consider having you guys a part of the tribe for 2017 or 18. We're in a mode right now where we're having those initial conversations to explore the possibility. The new year and pre-Easter and just after Easter it's not too late to do some of that stuff, depending on who you are and kind of the stage and status where things are at. But love to be able to personally have a conversation with you and tell you a little bit more. Down below, there's a few other links to give you a better idea of some of the other things we're doing and who else we're working with. But until then, blessings. Thanks for taking a few minutes and hanging out with us.